Hey guys, what's going on? It's Brandon out here at my little mini Stonehenge, hanging out. And okay, so that video last night got cut short because my memory on my phone. I apologize. But anyway, it's actually probably a good thing because I'd rather talk about it out here. Last night I was next to a place that had music and everything. It's actually really cool what happened yesterday. This gives me a chance to explain a bunch of different things. So I always say I have like a magic gut in life, and the reason why I say that is because I'm trying to be like non-arrogant, that it's not just that I'm this super genius that can figure things out in the blink of an eye. Instead, it's like it's kind of like a bomb sniffing dog. It's like the dog starts barking at a certain box and it's like that's a problem, and I, the human, don't really know exactly what the problem is, but I trust that bomb sniffing dog. And basically, I'll show you what created all the ruckus yesterday. And my Facebook account actually got like taken down hard for a moment by Facebook. So the guy who I was in the debate with, he attacked my posts. This guy didn't even rebuttal me one time. He didn't even have the class to say, I don't agree with you, Brandon, or I see your point, Brandon, or whatever. He just wanted to eliminate my property. He knew how extensive the Vet Titans account was, and he went for blood. And my bomb sniffing dog internally had just identified this guy. I'm just going to call a spade as a piece of shit. I was seeing that he was just a little bitch. I've liked the guy, you know, I've tolerated stuff when we have differences of opinions, but something about here recently, I started to see that this guy's a bitch. And what he did to my account was below the belt. And luckily, Facebook has some pretty savvy people that have been taking my side a lot lately. I think that there's a lot of people inside Google, YouTube, as well as Facebook who are paying very close attention to me, and they realize this guy has some points. And like it or not, he's not going out and causing violence. He's just verbally preaching what he has no tolerance for, and we actually know that the guy isn't making a lot of this stuff up. Because when you're at the Facebook or YouTube level, you start to realize that a lot of the stuff that I talk about the really wealthy people manipulating things, you start to realize I'm not wrong when you work for those companies, and you realize that there's people even above Mark Zuckerberg and the people who run Google. There's very powerful people on this planet, and it's all in the name of safety, because there are super weapons, guys. It's not a mystery that there's nukes, okay? It's not a mystery that there's hydrogen bombs. These things exist. So anyway, let me get here to what it is I'm looking for. I apologize about the delay. Let's see.
That are not anchored to faith, anchored to Jesus.
Let me start with this.
I wonder if by continuing to lie, they aren't about everything. They're driving all of us a little crazy. Well, this is why your faith is the most important thing. Because for those of us that are Christians, it doesn't drive you crazy.
And don't worry,
you actually see what's going on.
I'm gonna contradict some of this stuff in a second.
Against flesh and blood, but against principalities and darkness and spirits, that there's a spiritual war here. And you're right, Tucker. I find people in this space that are not anchored to faith, anchored to Jesus, they do lose their mind. Because there is no rational or reasonable explanation for what the country is doing to itself or what we are experiencing. But if you then see and you know that there is a God and we are not him, that there is an entire dimension of angels and demons and spirits that are constantly struggling around us, and that there is a supernatural dimension, as you mentioned, all of a sudden, that does then make sense. It does not make any rational sense to shut down your schools.
Here we go. This is a good
part. So you
part.
can sacrifice the kids so the elderly can live. That makes no sense whatsoever. It makes no sense whatsoever to keep your marijuana dispensaries open and your alcohol shops open, but the church non-essential. Only a demonic enterprise would do such a thing. only a demonic enterprise, would say that Easter and Pentecost are not essential, but race rioting and burning down a Wendy's is essential activity. And Tucker, you talk about this a lot. For those of us that know the truth, we know that our God is a God of order and distinction. What is the first thing that God did?
Listen carefully
Hebrew
right here.
scriptures, it says, well, and also our scripture in the original Genesis, Bereshit, which is in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and then he separated and he made sense. He made order out of chaos. Our God is a God of order, and order only comes with distinctions, and distinctions are necessary. Think about all the distinctions that God set up in the first 6 books of Genesis that are currently under attack. The distinction between male and female, the distinction between man and nature, the distinction between the holy and the profane, the distinction between good and evil, the distinction between infant and adult. These distinctions have always been what Western civilization were built upon, but it is Satan's goal to blur and eventually...
Okay, so I apologize. I'm not trying to give you a Bible study or something like that. What I wanted to do is I wanted to make a simple point that I'm not saying you guys don't have the right to religion and believe whatever you want to believe. That's great. What I'm going to suggest is you don't make the mistake that he did, where you try to make it out that the other team is always devil worshippers and satanic, because most rich people who run the show, it's not that they're going and worshiping Satan. I know plenty of rich people, and I know how they think, and they just think that most religious people are quacks, okay? So when you attach this demonic Satan, blah, 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 to things, it's just like the Antichrist bullshit. When you attach this demonic thing to things instead of keep it simple. Without order, you're on the path to destruction. Without a proper foundation, you are on a path to destruction. If your house isn't put on a proper foundation, and he's correct about distinctions, there need to be distinctions. Now, the topic about people wanting to be a different gender and stuff, that's a complicated one. I'm not going to get into that stuff. You know, I just suggest people think twice before they go pretending, thinking that becoming the other gender is going to be the key to their happiness. But the point is, so that was one thing that I just wanted to show is, you know, people make good points, but they're always tying it back to religion. And honestly, a lot of the religious people that I know are crazy. People go crazy because they get so damn paranoid about, you know, stuff that isn't really. They get onto a I don't know how to explain it, on a tangent to say the least. Okay, so here's the mem. And this mem, at first glance, doesn't seem like much, but my bomb-sniffing dog, I call it, you can call it the Holy Ghost, you can call it the universe, you can call it whatever it is, you want to call it my magic gut, whatever it is. It doesn't fail me in life. And when it really has a problem with something, I'm having to play catch-up to figure out what is it. It's like having a bomb-sniffing dog that can sniff explosives, sniff bombs, sniff terrorists, sniff, you know, that there's human beings being trafficked. So you as the police officer, you as a human being, you don't always know what the dog's barking about, and you're trying to make heads or tails out of it. And so here's the mem that caused all the ruckus yesterday, and you say, Brandon, that's not that bad. I agree with you. At first glance, it doesn't seem like it's that bad. It's not a big deal. Stabbing on a train, school shooting, assassination. It's not a race problem. It's not a gun problem. It's not a political problem, it's a hate problem. So you think, ooh, that's profound. I like that a lot. That right there is a fucking Trojan horse. That is a Trojan horse beyond your wildest dreams, and my bomb-sniffing dog went off on that. And the reason being is, it really flipped the switch in my mind. And I've known this for a while, but now it's like all those analogies came to me last night for the first time, and I'm going to finish out those analogies because my video got cut short and I didn't have a chance to finish out the analogies. So last night I was talking about why I hate speech and trying to make it illegal. trying to make it, unethical and trying to ban it from social media and all these different things is not the right direction to go at all, because being able to verbalize what you hate and why you hate something is the freedom of speech. Resorting to violence because you hate something, that's a problem. Okay, that's a problem. So, and it's a complex topic, but I'm trying to remember what it was where I was going last night that got cut off. So we were talking about the difference between if I ask you, are nuclear bombs bad or nuclear power plants bad, you would say, I want to be able to answer those questions separately. I don't want to have to say that nuclear power plants are bad just because I think nuclear bombs are bad. I think nuclear power plants are good as long as intelligent people are running the show at the power plant, make sure it doesn't melt down, it's taken care of. We're fine. It doesn't have to be like Chernobyl. It doesn't have to be like, what was it in Japan when the earthquake happened and the floods and the water came in and it put radioactive shit all over the Pacific Ocean. It doesn't have to be like that if we humanity get our shit together and design the power plants better and have intelligent people in there and have fail-safe systems that are earthquake proof. It doesn't have to be like that. But what you have to understand is part of your recipe for why a nuclear power plant can be a good place and not a bomb, not a nuclear meltdown bomb, is because you yourself have to admit we can't have stupid people running the show. Okay, we can't have stupid people controlling the power plant. We have to have people who know what the fuck's going on and how to keep control of this thing. And or we have to have smart people design automated systems so that even if you killed every last smart person on Earth, the power plant disarms itself when it starts to go into a meltdown stage. Okay, you follow what I'm saying? Before it goes into a meltdown stage, as it starts to approach one. So you've got to admit that stupidity is a problem, okay? And then I went on to explain about how really high math is needed to get people to and from the moon. Even if you don't land on the moon, even if you do a slingshot around the moon, you've got to, you go up and sling around the moon, come back to Earth. You've got to still have really high math to accomplish these things. You've got to have people who are capable of trigonometry and algebra and geometry and pre-calculus, calculus. You got to have people who can do these things. And so when a person comes along and here's the analogy, and this is the part that got cut off. I didn't get to explain this last night. I want you to imagine that one of these people who's an egomaniac, that since they know that low math is true, they storm their way into NASA and they're like, all we need is low math. We don't need calculus. We don't need this shit. I want it out of the computer. It needs to be erased from the quote unquote laws inside the computer. It's the same as like the laws inside the state house or the laws inside the federal government. Okay, we need to erase these codes that involve the super high math. All we need is low math to get to the moon. We're going to change the way the programs work on the space shuttle capsules and Apollo rockets and all this stuff, Apollo capsules. We're gonna fix this. You say, okay, Brandon, that guy's an idiot. Well, that's what that meme is, guys. This meme is a Trojan horse for that exact concept. The moment that you start to say that hate is the problem, hate's not the problem. There's a lot of people who say religions are full of hate. A judge who sentenced somebody to the death penalty, they're not going to sit there and say, we here in America love you so much. Thank you for your service. Golly gee, we're going to give you the death penalty because we like you so much. No, the judge and the jury and all these people say that the activity that you participated in, why we're issuing you the death penalty, is an activity which we hate. We don't want, and I'm not saying this warrants the death penalty, but I'm just going to give an example. We don't want people to get drunk and then lose control of their car and run it up onto the sidewalk and kill a family, a bunch of little kids. There needs to be a punishment for that so that you think twice before you do that. And if that punishment happens to be the death penalty, it might be the death penalty. I'm not saying that is the death penalty, but I'm saying there's probably a time and somewhere in this world where that's been the death penalty, and it could still be the death penalty, okay? If you drunk drive and kill somebody. I don't know all the laws everywhere, but the point is, you see what I'm saying? we don't sit there and say, oh, we love that guy drunk drove and ran up on the curb and killed that family. That's just fantastic. what a great story. Okay, I can't wait till that happens to me. No, we hate that. I hate that happens. I hate that people go out and get drunk and kill people. I hate that. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed. So the point is, I make educated discussion with this guy yesterday explaining why this is a fucking Trojan horse of a statement, that it's very cleverly crafted by the billionaires who want to disarm they want to gut the laws out of your country that prevent you from keeping your liberties, your freedom of speech. They're trying to gut what it is that you're allowed to hate and not hate, because if they can do that, then you're no longer allowed to hate what they're up to. You're no longer allowed to hate inflation and hyperinflation. You're no longer allowed to hate it when the government steals from you. The $2.3 trillion missing from the Pentagon. You're no longer allowed to hate when, there's poison found in your foods. You're no longer allowed to hate when you find out that you're not even being given the proper cures to cancer. You're being given something else that causes you further. Okay, you're no longer allowed to hate something relative to love something else, okay? And this is a really big deal because they're turning you guys into low IQ hippies saying, all you need is low math. All you need is love. All we need to do is just get rid of hate. Just get rid of all the hate. So anyway, hopefully you understand what I'm saying. And that guy trying to get my Facebook account terminated last night, which it was for a moment. I couldn't log in. Facebook would completely redirect me. It wouldn't even let me attempt to log in. It was heavy duty shit that was going on my Facebook account. But luckily the people, they reviewed the account and they said, this guy's got a point. Are we going to live in a society where we're not allowed to say that we hate dog shit? Are we going to live in a society where we're not allowed to say what attributes we hate about a person's behavior, whether it's a drunk driver running up over a curb? Are we going to live in a society where we're brainwashed into believing that, quote unquote, hate is the problem? Hate isn't the problem. People resorting to violence because they don't know how to they don't know how to make their point and just get away from people if their point isn't. Now, in the workplace, I've had some people explain, and this is important, I'll touch on this. I've had some people explain that in the workplace, you're not allowed to just scream at people. And that's a valid law, because if those people aren't allowed to leave the premise because they'll get fired, they can't escape the situation. So I'm going to take it a step further. I think that the proper law should be that upon hiring, up front, this is a place where people are going to yell and scream. Maybe you work in a fucking coal mine and people need to yell at the fucking top of their lungs. And maybe you need people to be able to yell over heavy duty, loud noise equipment, okay? And yell at you that there's a problem and you need to stop before you break a power line or cut through a water line or kill somebody with your big backhoe or whatever it is. Maybe you work in an environment where yelling is essential. Maybe you like to work in an environment where you just kind of can do your thing and tune people out until somebody really raises their voice. Then you say, okay, now I'm paying attention. What's going on? If he's raising his voice, obviously it's important. Maybe you like to have every aspect of human communication at your disposal, and you want to work at a place where people are allowed to yell. That way, if and when they do yell, you know that there's an issue. So should that be maybe spelled out in the employment packet when you get hired on? Sure. Should it be completely illegal always, that people are never allowed to yell in the workplace? I don't think that's realistic. Should it be illegal for if you do sign on at a place where yelling isn't necessary and nobody at the workplace wants there to be yelling, and you get hired into a place and it says this is a non-yelling workplace, that person then gets fired if they yell? Sure. But back here in America, when you're outside of the workplace, when you walk out the door of that workplace, yelling is part of life, guys. I'm allowed to fucking yell to fucking get a rise in you guys to realize you're not as smart as you think you are. You're not as fucking noble as you think you are. You guys are trying to take our country back to another inferior country that runs on low math. What people have died through the last couple centuries in the United States to protect, we're going to protect that we need calculus and trigonometry and geometry and algebra and high math to get the space shuttle to and from the moon, or else people are going to die more often than not and get lost in space. It's the same thing as we are going to fight for the right to have quote unquote high math, aka capitalism, aka freedom of speech, where we're allowed to spell out what we hate and why we hate it and communicate that to each other. We're going to fight for these things. We're going to fight to give people the right to have quote unquote hate speech, but not be tribal racist. There's a difference. They're trying to attach hate speech. And I knew a long time ago when they came out with hate crimes, I was like, is there ever a murder where you don't commit the murder and you don't hate the guy? Oh, Your Honor, this was a hate crime, so it needs to be a super penalty. So now everybody, it promotes everybody to try to categorize every crime that's committed against them as a hate crime. This was a hate crime, Your Honor. This guy really hated me. Hate's not fucking illegal, guys. Destroying someone's property is illegal, okay? Beating somebody up is illegal. Killing somebody's illegal. The Founding Fathers were not dumbasses. You guys all think that you're gonna walk into fucking NASA and make this NASA a better place with your low math. And that's what that post is. That post is a fucking Trojan horse that's trying to infiltrate NASA. You follow my analogy, what I'm saying? That post is a Trojan horse into our country. I want you to look at it again, how clever this fucking thing is. And so when my bomb-sniffing dog went off and started to explain what the problem was with that, sorry. Sorry, I don't know what the audio is. Something's doing that. But when my bomb-sniffing dog went off and said, this is the issue, and then it gave me that analogy about the math. So here's the punchline. And I apologize, I'm only human. I don't get to the point always perfectly. The punchline is this. I lost it. Hang on a second. The punchline is this. You have to come to an understanding. This is what we need to teach kids in grade school when they're learning about this stuff. Instead of forcing them to learn one way or another, believe in one thing or another, I really think what we should do is we really need to set up an export program where kids go to other countries, have the opportunity to go to other countries. So first of all, okay, so let me get to the point here. You give people a couple choices. You say, okay, here's capitalism, here's freedom of speech, here's everything that the United States was founded on when the Founding Fathers did their thing, okay? The analogy, as Brandon explains, is other countries had low math, communism, socialism, all these different things, monarchies. These other countries had low math. We went to a higher math. Now, by the time you kids get to high school, a lot of you aren't going to be able to understand calculus. A lot of you aren't going to be able to understand pre-calculus. A lot of you are going to struggle through geometry. A lot of you are going to struggle through statistics and maybe even algebra. A lot of you are going to struggle. We don't hate you because of that. All that we're asking you to admit is, can you concur that we need higher math to get the space shuttle around the moon and back? I don't need you to be a physics expert. I don't need you to pass the highest levels of math. I just need you to have the common sense and the class to vow that you're not going to walk into NASA headquarters and demand that we remove higher math from the fucking space shuttle. And that is an analogy that we need a commitment from you that as you grow up and you're faced with these kind of Trojan horses, you're not going to try to roll the Trojan horse into Rome. You're not going to try to change the laws that surround quote unquote freedom of speech. And if you don't want there to be freedom of speech, then what we suggest is, we're not trying to imprison you or enslave you or force you to exist in a society. Understand, it was a lot of hard work for us to get here. Lots of wars factually have occurred for us to get here and stay here. So what we would kindly recommend that you do is travel abroad, and or just watch a lot of YouTube videos about countries where people are not allowed to explain what they hate, where people are not allowed to verbalize what they hate, because people in that country are such low IQ, they can't differentiate the difference between hate speech and resorting to violence. They're two fucking different things, okay? That's the punchline. That's where I was going last night, and I was on rapid fire because I was lit up, and that bomb-sniffing dog was giving me all the power to spit fire last night. And somebody at Facebook turned my fucking account back on. I didn't even get a strike. So those of you saying it's not worth it, I should be dead so many times, guys. I've crossed people and crossed the line on driving fast. I mean, I should be dead so many times. My Facebook account should probably be terminated so many times. Somehow or another, I'm just calling a spade, I'm thankful that somehow or another I'm being protected to an extent. You can say maybe it's, the universe or God or the Holy Ghost or the bomb-sniffing dog, whatever you want to say, that is influencing these other people in high places. You could maybe say that, that Facebook and YouTube to rule in my favor on things. You could just say it's all